We are excited to be announcing our newest presenter sponsor, Pizant Building Products. Pizant Building Products has been providing contractors and builders with the supplies necessary to complete their jobs since 1964. They've built a reputation on honest, helpful, and quality service, serving the HRM for the last 58 years, now with 7 locations in the HRM and 1 in New Brunswick. We look forward to having Pizant Building Products on the podcast in the near future. Okay, welcome back to the Atlanta Construction Podcast. Today we are excited to welcome Cook's Construction and Consulting, located in Calgary. So this is our longest reach to the western end of the country, and we're excited to have Russell Cook, founder of Cook's Construction and Consulting, with us today. Russell, thank you for doing this. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
You said you've seen a few of the episodes so far, so we're getting a few listens from that end of the country, which is exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
We usually start out by just telling us a little bit about your background. I know you founded Cook's Construction and Consulting in 2018, specializing in raised access floor, and maybe just tell us a little bit about your journey. I think, if I'm correct, you came from an interiors background with framing and drywall in that arena, and then I'll let you tell us about a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, so in my younger years, definitely after high school and whatnot, I was fully into the construction. I actually in the winter times I was doing basement developments, in the summertime building swimming pools, just trying to carve out where we're going to go, and then that kind of took me into the framing and drywall world with the 675 union in Ontario, and through that journey I got hooked up with a company out of Toronto, Ontario, that supplies, installs, manufactures raised access flooring. So that was back in 2010, late 2009, 2010. I was offered the opportunity to go to Calgary and work on the Bow Tower with that company. So the Bow Tower at the time was the largest, tallest structure in Western Canada. And that building had 1.8 million square feet of raised access flooring that the company was involved in. So they spent many, many years, more than I'd like to admit, inside that tower. I think.
Tell us how many.
It was a long time. I think we were in that building for, the funny thing is, even today, we're actually going to be going back in that building to do some tenant work over the next few months. So it's an amazing building. And it incorporates a lot of the modular construction methodology that we're now promoting today. But from that project, I kind of spun off and then went into the sales and project management role with the same company. And that took me out to Vancouver. So I was fortunate. I got to spend 3 years on the coast of Vancouver, again, engaged in a couple of really nice big projects out there. And then, as time progresses, family and kids come along. So we kind of came back to our roots here at Calgary, and that was in late 2017. And we were kind of, we had an opportunity with that company to utilize Cook's Construction and to kind of bring it to fruition. And then I had some, quite major plans with Cook's, and I kind of had a vision of where I wanted to take it. We started off as just I'll say a pretty basic installation company with a home office, a truck and trailer. And very quickly we were able to kind of blossom that and use our relationships. And we started taking on more manufacturers. And we went from just a simple kind of installation company, like I said, and went more to a supply and installation company. We were able to secure some really talented guys. We've got an amazing crew. Some of the guys that work with me now, I've actually worked alongside since the first days of the Bow Tower. We've got 3 or 4 guys that were all involved in that project that are still with us today, like 15 years later. So, so that's kind of brought us to full circle. Now we have an established location here about 15 minutes east of downtown Calgary, 2,500 square foot warehouse out back with an office front here where we've got our raised access flooring and our partition system set up. Really trying to showcase what we can promote and show people what we do exactly. So we've got all different types of raised floor. We've got the underfloor air, the partitions, the modular power, all throughout our office here. So.
Yeah, and just for our listeners in the East Coast might not be familiar with the bow tower in Calgary, I think it's 56 stories, and obviously the structure itself is in the shape of a bow. And so you were saying earlier that basically the entire tower, except for the lobby and maybe the second level, is all raised floor, which is...
Yeah, you got it. So I think it's the raised floor makes up about 1.8 million square feet of the space. Every floor is in and around the 25,000 square foot mark. And every single floor utilizes a full raised access floor. It's about 12 inches off the slab, and they run all of their services underneath. So plumbing, the HVAC is the raised access floor itself acts as the plenum. So that is the duct. There's no actual duct work within the space, short of a central core duct system that brings the air in from outside. Once it hits the mechanical room, from there it disperses under the raised access floor. So it's a fully pressurized system. Mm-hmm. And located around the floor plate, there's 8 or 9 inch circular diffusers, and that supplies everybody with the conditioned air for within the space.
I imagine your experience with interior systems and the framing background, used to coordinating with the trades on suspended ceilings and the whole layout and stuff too, and then leading into your experience with raised access floors with the bow building and so on, and then starting your own company. Like, you've got a good handle on the whole interior system side of construction.
We were able to almost see every single mistake possible in the bow tower. So being 56 stories, trying not to relive the same problems every single floor, we were able to, it was a scheduling nightmare for sure. There was trades working on top of each other, but at the end of the day, it was a very successful project, but we did, like I said, we learned every single lesson we think there is to learn. I mean, you definitely don't always know it all, but I would have to say that every mistake that could be made possible was made inside the building. And I mean that in a positive way, right? It's everything's a learning curve, and being able to see all the other trades and how everything works together in such a big space. I mean, logistically, it was quite an amazing project to come to fruition. Obviously, there was 1,500 to 2,000 people every day just trying to get in the elevators to go up the top of the tower. So, pretty impressive.
Who was the GC on that project?
Yeah, so Ledcor was I believe they took a construction manager role on that project, and there was Matthews Developments kind of overseeing the project. So kind of a combined. But Ledcor was the front runner for general contractor. Yeah.
So for our listeners who aren't that familiar with raised access floors, these are being used in classrooms, offices, command centers, data centers, retail spaces, casinos, museums, all kinds of commercial, institutional buildings. Was there a time where this system kind of became more popular with architects or with design? You'd obviously see it in certain areas in a gymnasium with with a stage area or something like that, or but when did we see this type of construction more consistent on design in commercial spaces?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say it's definitely a European or Asian technology, so to speak. Like, it was definitely more prevalent in those areas of the world first. I think in Ontario, it was about 45 plus years ago now. I think it was Microsoft that did their first major data center utilizing a raised access floor. So, in order for it kind of got its birth from the data center world, whereby they had those very hot equipment racks and server racks and battery units and stuff like that. When they had all this, prior to all the cloud computing we have now, they had these major data centers. And inside those data centers, like I said, there's battery racks and servers and stuff with all those computer elements, and they're super, super hot. So what they're trying to do, they were trying to cool it from over top, right? So when you're having to cool those systems, so you're pumping in cold air from above, it's kind of fighting the natural convection, the heat coming off those units are kind of fighting each other. So one way to do it was to implement that raised access floor. You bring all your server racks on top of the raised floor. Now you've done two things. You're able to bring your wires in from underneath. So it's easier for the technicians to bring the wire in underneath and bring the wire up into those cabinets. And again, cooling it. Bringing that cold air in under the raised access floor naturally wicks up those server racks and battery packs, right? So it was cooling it much, much more efficiently. So from there, it kind of expanded out into the office space. So the same concepts where we had all the wires, for people's computers, any power consumption, data management, all that stuff was spread out from under the floor, running to people's desks. And what that did was give the ability to make changes very, very easily and efficiently. So instead of you plugging into a wall, you're now plugged into the floor. And the raised access floor is a modular system whereby each tile or each raised access flooring panel is 2 feet by 2 feet. Mm-hmm. So the whole floor is made up of these modular panels. And your finishes, whether it's carpet or vinyl, would have the ability to be removed. You can access the raised floor. That way, you can now pick up different panels and interchange them over that course of that floor plate. So where you have a power connection coming through the floor, you can pick up that connection and move it anywhere within that floor plate. So you're never, quote unquote, tethered to a wall. You maintain your power, your mechanical systems, your plumbing, everything within the floor plate. So you're never subjected to, piping or electrical in a wall. You just have that fully spread out within the raised floor, and that allows for that future flexibility. So,
and so in the really common sense side of it, you're kind of inverting the ceiling plenum and the suspended ceiling to a raised floor. It might not be as easy to access as it is to just pop a ceiling tile open, depending on the floor system, right? But so there's pendants, and the thickness, like you said, it could be anywhere from as low as 2 inches to 10 feet. It depends on the area and the design.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, the benefits of having a raised access floor versus, you're exactly right. Sorry. Like from the ceiling system to the floor system, you're basically taking a drop down ceiling and you're basically flipping it on its head and putting it on the floor. So now you're running all your services there. The benefit to having it come through the floor in an open office environment, you, instead of having to have those, pack poles or chase walls and stuff like that to bring your connectivity down to the people, you can now do that from within the floor. So, from what we see, a building maintenance aspect, it becomes easier to make those kind of moves as and changes when you're able just to simply run new wires and cabling underneath. Like, I'll give you an example. We about 5 years ago now at one of the universities here, we did 5 big lecture halls. So it was a tiered seating. We can actually do that on a raised floor too. We can build the system in a tier formation. They can put their furniture systems on top. And I'm probably aging myself. Maybe it was longer, so like 7 or 8 years ago now, to be honest with you. But when we did it, there was just simply 110 power ran to all of the students, right? So where all the tables would have been, there was just 110 outlets ran. A couple of years ago, we went back into all those classrooms and we opened some of the floor up. The data guys came in and they ran fiber optics and low voltage like USB cables to all of those outlets. So over the course of a weekend, we were able to take just a traditional plug-in classroom, 110 plug, and over the course of the weekend, we made it now so that the students were able just to simply plug in USB in. They had the fiber optic or the high def connections for the different tablets and things like that they need at their desk. So without virtually no construction and no downtime, we were able to make that connectivity possible for the students. So that's where raised floor really lends itself. Another great example, we were building, we're doing about 800,000 square feet here for a large oil firm, Esso campus here in Calgary. And unfortunately, it was during the kind of the downturn of the economy out this way. So what once was 5 buildings of separate floor spaces, one of the buildings became more of a laydown area for remote employees to come in. So during the construction of this building, where we had, necessarily offices and pods and stuff set up for people during the building, we were actually able to quickly adapt and change and completely open up the layout. So it was very simple for us. We just relocated some of the wiring we had under the floor, and then we were able to kind of create more of a bullpen layout for the staff. So, during that construction, which would have been a huge construction change typically, because of that raised access floor design, we're able to adapt and just simply add a few more power bars and cables underneath the floor, and then maintain that connectivity for the workers. So
Talk a
Those are
little bit
good.
about some of the energy consumption, like because it's a pressurized system as opposed to a ceiling plenum. There's benefits there too, right?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with a raised access floor and you've got that what we call UFAD or underfloor air distribution,
Mm-hmm.
the nice thing is you're bringing air temperatures in at a much more, we'll call it acclimatized setting. So you're bringing the air into that floor that is going to be virtually, if you're calling for say 21 degrees air, 21 degree air, you're bringing that air in at very close to that temperature versus the overhead system. The overhead system is in turn a mixing system. So when you're bringing that air in from overhead, it's designed to mix with the room air. So it has to come in much colder to be able to mix with that room air. So just from terms of efficiency, bringing that air in from underneath the floor, you can bring it in a much more moderate temperature, which means you're cooling less air. And because it is a fully pressurized system at a lower velocity, you're bringing in is less turbulent air, so you need smaller units to pump the air through. Especially here, I'm sure on the East Coast as well, you're able to use more free cooling hours, so you're able to use the economizer settings a lot more because you're bringing in more moderate temperatures, and then you're able to effectively or efficiently ventilate the space better because you're bringing the air in from underneath, and you're pushing the hot air away from the space. You're effectively ventilating that space so much greater. So definitely from terms of energy efficiency, we see a great increase in efficiency and energy savings from a UFAD system.
It sounds like the systems that you're installing for raised access floor and the lines you carry and the manufacturers you deal with it seems like a more robust system. Obviously suspended ceilings are very common and but a lot, depending on the aesthetics and the desired cost and that kind of thing, they're not as probably durable, after 10, 15 years, there's lots of ceiling damage and light ceiling tiles are damaged pretty easily and that kind of stuff. So it sounds like a far more durable, like robust option for that too, right?
Totally. And nothing against the ceiling guys, but we typically try and promote that open ceiling concept now because virtually there's nothing in the ceiling besides your life safety and your lighting. So in terms of efficiency, when you're building a building, let's say you're building a 5-story building and your standard slab to slab might be, let's call it 12 feet, and you've got 2 feet reserved for your ceiling system, your ductwork and things like that. With a raised access floor, that 12 feet can now be translated into say 11 feet. What the typical ceiling system does in 24 inches, we can do in 12. So we can reduce the need for that slab to slab height. So now you're building a building that's slightly smaller, but you're still maintaining the same finished floor height, right? So you're still maintaining, if you wanted a 10-foot finish, say from your floor to your ceiling system, what we can do, like I said, we can do in 12 inches what they do in 24. So we can actually reduce that overall building height, which means now you're spending less on your curtain wall, less glazing, you're heating and cooling less. Less concrete, all that kind of stuff goes into the affordability of the raised access flooring system as well. So, and then in terms of, the raised access flooring being robust, our systems primarily are made of steel and concrete, and they're rated for, we have panels that are rated from anywhere from 1,250 pounds per square inch all the way up to 3,000 pounds per square inch. They're designed, essentially for life. They're not going anywhere. Versus that of a ceiling system. So yeah, definitely in terms of longevity, we like to believe that the systems that we install are going to last for quite some time for sure.
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of different systems and different floor panels that one could choose from. Some of them are wood core, fiber and gypsum core. I'm assuming that's for fire rating, and then there's a thickness for your foot traffic and stuff like that. But like, let's say if we have an average run of the road raised floor at 12 inches, what's a typical cost if you're budgeting per square meter or square foot?
Yeah, no, definitely. And we're obviously faced with this question quite a bit. And I have to preface the question by saying, giving a budget is one thing, but we need to make sure that we're not thinking about a budget for a raised floor as adding to the price of the overall project. So if we're looking at it in terms of a square foot, it's easy for us to sit here and say that you're anywhere between, and again, this is kind of an economy to scale, obviously with shipping and things like that. we're pretty safe on an overall floor plate to say, make sure you add $15 a square foot for your raised access flooring system. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to add $15 to your overall budget.
Because you can subtract the suspended ceiling at $5 or $10 a square foot. You can, and so on and so forth.
And not just that, like there's so much, if you're going into an existing building, for instance, let's say we're going into an existing building and we're going to do a low profile system and we've budgeted at $15 a foot. What would that $15 a foot look like if you were trying to do, say, slab preparation? So let's say you had a slab and you had to, flatten out your slab for your glass wall system because you need a relatively flat surface for your glass walls. You've got the coring of the slab, you've got trenching to run power, different, even the cost just to x-ray the floor, to scan it before you can start coring. And then, like you said, your ceiling systems, things like that. So there's a lot of give backs from a spreadsheet. We have a lot of exercises that show, two different exercises. One we can do where we're looking at a brand new building, when we're going to implement, say, an underfloor air distribution system, or an existing building where we're going to just implement a small raised access floor, leave all the mechanical systems where it's at, and look at data distribution and power distribution. Both models essentially get us to cost neutral. So you're actually able to add a raised floor into your budget, but not necessarily increase your budget. And I mean, in terms of what we call traditional construction or raised access floor. So you don't have to look at it as an addition to your budget. There's so many givebacks, even as little as like transition strips, things we can transition from carpet to tile to, rubber without any kind of transition. All the transitions are made within the raised access floor itself. So these panels, you can cut them on site. We can raise and lower portions. If you're going to drop it for an inch or of ceramic tile or whatever, that can all be done with the raised access flooring system itself. So
right. So if a rough concrete floor is not consistent within a large, say 10,000 or 20,000 square foot space, it's all self-leveled with the pendants that are included in the floor system, right? In your floor system.
You got it. So where the panels are, every corner of the panel will share, or 4 panels will share what we call a pedestal. So those pedestals are fully adjustable. I got a couple sitting in the back shelf here, but the pedestal system itself has essentially a bolt, like a large bolt that will actually screw into the pedestal base. And that, incrementally, we can take up deflection. There's really nothing that you can't do with the raised access flooring system. We've seen floor slabs that have been out 3, 4, 5 inches, and just because of that adjustability, we can maintain a perfectly flat laser level floor, and you have all the deflection taken up within. And it doesn't matter. We've done warehouse construction, warehouse fit outs where the slab has just been completely torn apart. We use a special pedestal adhesive. We glue the base down, and we can take up all that deflection. And like I said, have a perfectly flat floor surface. So tons of savings there.
And I'm assuming, just for consistency, like a lot of your construction, the projects that you're bidding on, is kind of base build, right? Just because if an architect or design group is deciding to go the option of a raised floor, it's basically got to be consistent throughout the space, right?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of new construction, there's obviously a huge design element with the raised floor, because now we're talking about a depressed slab. You've got your full height windows, so we've got those kind of sitting on a curb where the raised floor is going to meet up to it. You've got to think about your bathrooms. You've got to think about your elevator core, your stairwells. How is all that going to jive with the raised access floor? So there's definitely a lot of work that way. But honestly, we see a lot of our work, and I would say almost 60% of our work, I bet you, is in existing spaces where they're adding a raised floor to it, whether it be 2 inches or 10 inches. We can come into a space and we can build that raised floor system to give the users that freedom and flexibility to run all their power and data under the floor. This gives them the option to have that really nice low profile aluminum glass wall system. So you can have a really slimline aluminum track at the bottom, maintain as much natural daylight as possible because that floor is perfectly flat. So in a situation where we're coming into an existing space, we have the ability to create a small ramp out of the raised floor, staying with modular. So we actually use the raised access flooring panels. So we have special heads that angle them down. So things like bathrooms, stairwells, elevator lobbies, we can actually ramp down to those or have a step down to those, maintaining the raised access floor, modularity and flexibility. And that way we can implement these systems in a variety of spaces. So we do see a lot of like colleges and universities. We've just completed close to 400,000 square feet recently at the local university here. They've gone full raised access floor throughout. But in addition, a lot of their old spaces now. We're getting a lot of projects coming out that are adding raised floor, just simply for that flexibility and connectivity as the students and their technologies evolve. That raised flooring system allows the school to evolve with them, because they can simply add means of power or connectivity under the floor without going to a full construction mode, right? Without, and all the downtime. There's not all this construction. You're not ripping out links of cable from the walls. You're just simply adding new infrastructure within the floor space.
What about healthcare? Is it used in that domain at all?
Yeah, we do see some. It doesn't seem to have lent itself well, like in the hospital environment. I think that comes mainly from a cleaning aspect, because there is that, the raised access floor is designed to be accessed. And I know in hospital settings and things like that, cleanliness and being able to essentially hose down an entire area means that you have to have kind of a full sheet good on the floor, like whether it's the welded vinyl or whatever. So it doesn't always lend itself well to having that raised access flooring system, because it is designed to be accessed. That being said, we've done a few projects in the healthcare field, but mainly X-ray rooms, MRI rooms, and things like that, where they need to get all the power and stuff under the floor coming up to these machines. And we do a lot of simulators and stuff too, but that same concept. So they can run all the power and stuff to these units without having cords overhead or kind of along the floor space, right?
Yeah, and it's got to be quite popular in retail as well, right? Shopping malls and.
Yeah, we've seen, like, casinos are huge. Casinos, I bet you majority of casinos in Canada that we know of anyways have gone with a raised access floor simply for that aspect of power and data distribution. Casinos of old used to be, the manual pull down thing where, not much connectivity needed other than power. And nowadays they've got, full LED screens and they're connected to the internet and all that kind of stuff. So, and then being able to, as a casino, to change the layout of your slot machines lends itself perfectly to raised floor. And then you're not running, those big pack poles down to a group of slots. You're bringing all the power from underneath. So majority of casinos out there, with the exceptions of Vegas, for some strange reason, Vegas hasn't quite adopted it. They seem to have stuck to their guns with their ceiling systems, but the majority of casinos out this way that we've done, that we see, are all raised access floor.
And further to that, like anytime you see, and obviously mass timber is becoming more and more popular for mostly aesthetic reasons. Obviously, most times you see a mass timber project, it's got to be a raised floor, right? You don't want to cover up that. The beautiful aesthetic of natural wood and structurally and integrity,
Definitely.
but it's still got to be open ceiling, right? You don't want to be dropping stuff in front of that, so it's all got to be raised floor. Yeah,
100%. Like mass timbers and raised floors, they go together so well. It's exactly what you said, because if you don't have the raised access floor, you're going to have large amounts of ductwork in the ceiling. You're going to have to run your data cable trays somewhere. And that's typically going to have to be reserved for that ceiling system. And then, like you said, you're covering up all that beautiful aesthetic wood. So yeah, we haven't done too many. They're not quite, they don't seem to be rolling out in the masses here, but we are working on a lot of different designs with mass timber right now and raised access floor, just because it does make sense. Especially for those unsightly ceiling systems that are typically reserved for, behind a ceiling system. Whereas with mass timber, you want to leave it fully exposed. And then you're reducing your materials as well. You're getting rid of a lot of those ceiling systems. You're reducing the sheet metal, the ductwork, and you're keeping that open plenum underneath the raised access floor. So.
Yeah, talk a little bit about some of the other manufacturers that you're connected with, aside from the raised floor, like for demountable glass office wall systems and your customized display millwork and stuff like that. Kind of all goes together.
Our approach is trying to stay within that whole modular building construction kind of methodology. So we have the belief that we can start off with that raised floor. Everything with us starts with a raised floor. So don't get me wrong, we do demountable partitions without raised floor, but our kind of promotion and our claim to fame is to start with the raised access floor. With the raised access floor, that allows you to have modular power. When I speak of modular power, I'm referring to like a plug and play connection. So I'm literally saying that anybody, building maintenance guys, anybody like that can come onto the floor, and you can plug into furniture feeds or electrical boxes that are floor mounted. And then what that does is that brings us into our glass partition system. So having the power distribution and electrical distribution under the access floor means you can put up the lovely glass walls because your power is inside the floor. So you don't have to worry about plugging into a wall, and you can keep those, glass walls or have that open office concept with our kind of our modular furniture systems. So our glass supplier is actually based out of Montreal. And they provide us with a variety of different options. But the true demountable systems that we work with, so you can go from a glass wall, you can actually pop out the aluminum track, pull out one piece of glass, and you can put in, say, a wood wall. So you can go from glass to wood, single glazed to double glazed. And again, you're keeping that power in the floor. So you have the option to actually move that wall from one location to the next. So it is a truly demountable system. Which lends itself well to kind of growing businesses, growing organizations. Once you've implemented your office layout, down the line as you expand, you're able to literally take those walls, those glass walls, and move them around your floor plate, right? Because you've got that perfectly level floor, power's in the floor. You can move those glass walls anywhere around the office space.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've carved out a bit of a niche, like with the fact that you specialize in raised floor, and then obviously the whole modular concept for interior construction makes me think of. It's similar to companies like Dirt Environmental or something, but they're more of, different types of partitions and stuff like that. Who would be your direct competitors in the Western provinces? Are there many companies that are specializing in from the ground up, so to speak, on their approach and business model?
There definitely are. I mean, we've got some great competition out there. More so on the wall side. We look at the walls as they complements our system.
Yeah.
Cook's Construction, the company as a whole, we focus on definitely the raised floor. Like that's our claim to fame. That's what we've done for 15 plus years. But that's all these other systems that we brought on or we utilize are just things that complement the system that makes the space that much better for the owners or the occupants. What kind of separates us a little bit from our competition is all of our guys are trained and certified and in-house employees. So we don't have any subs that we work with. All of our guys are retained by Cooks. But in terms of competition, we do have the Dirt and the Falk Builds, the Hayworths out there that do the glass walls and the modular system.
But they're manufacturers as well, right? These companies you're mentioning.
They are, right? Yeah. So they use their dealer network to be able to promote. So they've obviously got a variety of dealers, throughout Canada. And the difference with them is I think they do have a type of a raised access flooring system. It's a little different from ours. It's, I would never speak negatively about different companies, but their system is more geared towards just for data disbursement and stuff in order for them to run power throughout, which similar to ours is a bit more robust and designed for very kind of heavy loads and maintains that underfoot feel like a traditional slab. We like to think of our raised access floors. If somebody walks on our floors, we like to compliment that people say, we don't even know we're walking on a raised floor. Like we don't want people to be able to feel or hear the raised floor. It should just walk like a traditional concrete slab. Like there should be no differentiate between our floor and a slab. So
yeah, and so some of your demountable glass partitions after the raised floor is complete, are they freestanding or all need to be extended up to deck height or different options?
No. Yeah, we have a variety of options. So oftentimes they're tied into a ceiling system or a bulkhead, but even in our office here, my office here is completely open concept. We've designed it so that you can actually look over from upstairs and see the living office space. So we've got the modular desk and we've got the power and the air and stuff, so you can actually see it. But no, we're fortunate to work with a manufacturer that allows us to have almost a freestanding pod, so you can have a four-sided pod in the middle of a floor with a completely open concept. Structural steel elements within the aluminum itself can allow us to erect these in a variety of fashions. We're doing a project out in Vancouver currently where the mezzanine level there's no ceiling system, so all of the partitions have a finished header piece with a structural steel element inside, and that's achieved in a seismic zone as well. So you're not really tied to any one form of construction with the demountable partitions, which is nice. Obviously lends itself to the raised floor concept and reducing your overall materials and creating a more sustainable kind of working environment.
Tell us a little bit about Cook and your labor force. You mentioned everything is in-house for installation when you're bidding on these public tenders, and you're bidding on stuff mostly in Calgary and Vancouver, Central Canada as well.
So yeah, we're that's one thing that I'm most proud of about Cooks. We've kept that aspect of our business, and it's one thing that we feel very, very strongly about. We're able to, if a contractor asks us to be here on September 1st at 11 o'clock in the morning, we can guarantee that because the guys are, they're retained by us, so they're all employed by Cooks. And it's something that allows us to offer, the best guarantee and the best warranty we can, because we know that the work is going to get done right, because the guys don't have to meet a certain deadline to make a certain amount of money. They're paid by the hour. They're committed to the project. There's no sense of urgency other than, meeting the project schedule, of course. But the biggest thing for us is ensuring the project is completed, to the best of our ability, and to make sure that the client is happy, because our business is so based on referrals. And if we do a good job here for one client, there's a great chance that we're going to be able to work with that client again in the future, whether it's an architect, end user, or obviously general contractor. So, and again, retaining the in-house services, we're able to work across Canada, which has been fantastic. The guys love traveling. We got a beautiful country here, obviously. So being able to see a lot of it whilst working, being paid to travel, it's amazing for the guys. They spent a month out in BC on the coast doing a really nice project for a general contractor, right on the coast, and we rented them an Airbnb on a lake, and they just had a ball with it. We've got projects in Saskatchewan that we're just wrapping up now. We were successful in a project actually in New Brunswick. We're going to be working on the Kodiak policing facility out there, providing some raised access floors. So, I'm definitely going to have to travel out there because I've never been that far. So I'm looking forward to that. But our guys will do all the traveling. They'll drive across country, drive across country, whatever we have to do. But again, it just allows us to be not only competitive, but make sure that we're providing the client with what our expectations are, and we know what we can deliver.
Tell us a little bit about your first job that you secured in New Brunswick that you just mentioned. I know you mentioned earlier that it was with Pomerleau and public tender there, and so is that raised floor in certain areas of that police facility, or?
That's correct. Yeah. I think back to exactly what the drawings are now, but I'm sure exactly which part of the building it's going to be in. But
you're doing all the estimating yourself.
I do a lot of it. Yeah, I do actually have kind of a business partner. He actually resides in Toronto, Ontario. Him and I have worked together for many, many, many years, longer than I'm sure either one of us would like to admit. But he was actually on the Bow Tower, so him and I are sharing the kind of estimating and sales responsibility. We have a full-time project manager who again was on the Bow Tower with us. And our construction manager, Kobe, he's been with us. Him and I have worked together since the inception of my career with raised access floor. So just alone those four kind of what we'll call 4 or 5 we'll call management staff, we've all known each other and worked together for over 15 years. So it's and then again, there's 3 of our installers that were also on the Bow Tower when I first started. So the I'm going to say experience is it's unbelievable. And I've completely lost track of exactly what the question was, because I started talking about something else.
So. Oh, no, I was just wondering if you'd give us a few details on the project in New Brunswick, right. Just because it's your first project in the East Coast. And
yeah. So we're super excited. We do have another project coming up in Ontario, but the East Coast project, Kodiak there, it's not a huge raised access floor, but it's a raised access floor. I think it's 3,000 square feet, and it's going to be kind of in their operations center, I believe, where there's a lot of desks, and maybe even be the call center, like we'll call it the ops center there. So again, they're going to use it for mainly distributing the cable. It's not used as a plenum, this one. The air is going to be from overhead, but they're going to use it for all of their connectivity or power, we'll call it. And again, this just gives them the option down the road to add more people to that space, right? So they can very easily add a pod of desks into that space. And because they have that raised access floor, they can very easily from the electrical closet, bring new power in, utilizing that modular power and coming up through the floor space there. So it's, really excited about that, the project. I think for us, we should be out there Q1, Q2 of next year. So very excited. We'll have to drop in and see you guys.
Yeah, you have to drop in to Water Street in Halifax and pay us a visit. We'll grab a patio somewhere downtown.
100%. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, in 2018 when you started Cook's Construction. Obviously, a lot of the guys came from the, like you mentioned, the Bow Tower, and you'd worked with them for years. just for our listeners who are contractors or are thinking about entering the industry or starting their own thing as a business. There might be tradespeople that are very experienced on that end, but have a little bit of concern, and obviously there's uncertainty, and just to kind of pull the trigger and follow through with it. So just maybe tell us a little bit about that experience. Obviously, it was a couple of years before things got globally shut down for a little bit. So at least you had a couple of years under your belt before that happened. But
we picked a heck of a time to do it. Like, there's definitely it's a great question, and I apologize if I jump back and forth. I'm going to try and get everything out because I got a lot of stuff I can talk about on that. But I don't know that there ever is a right time to ever do anything. I mean, there's better times than others, sure. I've always thought and wanted to have my own company, or to at least have a company that I can share with guys and try and do something successful. I truly love what we do. I love the raised access flow. I believe in it wholeheartedly. So the decision for me to do this was easy because I really believed in what we promote and what we sell. I believe that it does make a difference. I believe it does make the office environment or the environment that we're putting it in that much better. So it's a very easy thing from that side of it. Now, obviously, we started, like I said, I had a home office, we had a truck and a trailer, and the guys being so good that I work with used their own vehicles to start with, the driving to and from the job sites, putting tools in their own vehicles to get this thing going. So we really had a big buy-in from all of our, we'll say employees, but they're associates or whatever you want to call them. But they're, in terms of people wanting to start their own business, I mean, absolutely. I think it's great. It's amazing how many people that I've met along the way that do their own thing. It's a very rewarding thing. It's also, I mean, you got to be prepared for a lot of sleepless nights. That's very true. And there's huge growing pains. But it's a lot of fun along the way too. I mean, like I said, we've gone from a kind of a truck and trailer home office to owning a building, well, paying for a building, but being in a space that we've been able to completely design. We took an open warehouse and we completely renovated the front, 1,500 square feet of the front and kept 2,500 square feet warehouse. So we had a vision. I still have the sketches today that I sketched on paper. Then we go through the architect design, and now we're seeing it all come to fruition. It's an amazing journey. For us, obviously, there was a big chunk of that in the middle where unfortunately, we had that COVID hit us, and it was odd for sure because a lot of our construction sites were just shut down for several months. So it was a weird thing to navigate through, but we got by, and we've got a lot of really good contractors out here that trusted us with their projects. And again, I think that lends itself to the quality of employees that we have, and our guys are so good at ensuring that the contractors and the owners and the end users are getting exactly what they want, that we're able to get referred and come back and do the job again. So it's been a hell of a journey. So what advice would I give to anybody to start their own company? I would say absolutely go for it. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be times when there's times now you kind of look at yourself just like, man, is this going to work? Am I going to be able to do this? But at the end of the day, it's a very rewarding thing you can do, and surround yourself with good people. You got to treat the people that you do surround yourself with good. That's a really big important thing. Nobody's ever below you. They're always at your level. They're there. They're your biggest assets. Like your employees and the people that you work with are your biggest assets. Make sure that they're happy and that they're going to treat you the same way as well, right? So.
Well, congratulations on being 4.5 years in and weathering the storm of of the whole pandemic and completing jobs all over Western provinces, and then your first job here in Eastern Canada. Sounds like you're doing okay. You got to be really happy with that. That's amazing, and congrats on that.
I appreciate that, and thanks. No, it's been a hell of a journey. This year, like 2022, end of 2021, 2022, I sat down with my wife and our closest guys here, and I said, this is going to be a big year for us because we're bidding and working on projects that are north of $1 million, north of, so there's big financial constraints to those projects, especially when you have, you're purchasing materials we're buying materials in February for a job that's just delivering next week, for instance, right? So we're months out, and of course the manufacturers need to get something. The shipping guys need to get something before you're even able to get boots on the ground. So there's a big financial burden. So you kind of have to build up to there. And I always said that 2022, come 2023, was going to be a pivotal year for us. It was either going to be kind of a huge growth year, which it definitely is. Regardless, it's a huge growth year. But if we can really maintain the direction that we're heading, 2023, 2024 should be really exciting. Able to get into a lot more projects from the design aspect and working with the architects and designers and kind of be their trusted companion, so to speak, throughout the project, and make sure that we're able to deliver, a successful project at the same time. So
you've obviously worked on lots of, some of the major projects like the bow tower you mentioned, and then, all kinds of different size projects. What's your take on what the market is like right now in Calgary and in the Western provinces? I know here in Atlantic Canada, it's thriving for sure. It's booming in commercial, institutional, industrial projects at the moment. So
I'm super optimistic with the way things are going. I feel like I have my ear to the ground in terms of kind of what's the Bank of Canada doing with mortgage rates and all those things, as well as what's going on with the RFP world and what's happening in quotations and tenders. We're answering more tenders now than I ever have. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think for the first time ever, the last couple of weeks, we've actually looked at a couple of jobs and said, we're going to have to probably pass on that one just because we've got all these other things happening here. So, which is it's a great place to be, not bidding on a job or not having to, we look at jobs a little more closely and kind of pick and choose because there is a good chunk of tenders out there. But I do feel really optimistic. There's several towers in Calgary that, we've had some rocky times over the last 5-10 years. Some of the vacancy rates in Calgary have been very, very high. So we're seeing now there's a lot of tenders coming out filling those spaces, which is really, really nice to see. We know we've retained some really big clients. The Alberta government's done a pretty good job of bringing in some major tech firms. I know IBM is taking a chunk of square footage here. And there's a few other big tech firms I can't think of obviously at the top of my head, but retaining some major investment here.
And those are desirable for you in the fact that, when you have a tech firm moving in, they're going to take hundreds of thousands of square feet 100%. Across the province and a lot of data and stuff to run under those raised floors. So
100%, yeah, and like the same as Vancouver. Vancouver's always been great and popping, and it seems to not be slowing down at all. Saskatchewan as well. There's big push there. I feel really, really optimistic about where we're heading. I hope that things just keep trending that way. It's keeping up with the labor force is tricky. It's been tough pulling. With our guys, we've got a core group of about 8 or 10 guys that stick with us from the install side, but we need to supplement them obviously with labor and bringing in new guys, and getting them trained. So it's been tricky navigating that. I'm sure some of your other guests have had the same problem maintaining a labor force, but again, super good problem to have. There's so many people at work. It's just one big circle. There's so many people working. They're going to be spending money. That economy is going to be spinning, and hopefully everybody's able to be successful. So.
Is there some training and development that one can get in specifically interior raised floors and modular and that space specifically?
Yeah, it's funny. Like in Alberta, we're not very union heavy here in Alberta, or again in BC, even from Central Canada west. Really, there's not a heavy union presence. But in Ontario, where I started. It's all unionized. So all the raised access flooring guys that I was working with, they were all coming from the carpenters union or the joiners union.
Right. Yeah.
So, those skills are very transferable into a raised floor world. I mean, we use lasers, we use, obviously measuring tapes and layout. So it is, it's not by any means, it's not the hardest thing in the world to install, but it's one of those things where if you get into a problem early on, it's very hard to correct it. Like you can imagine with a raised access floor, we're installing a modular panel system. So it's 2 foot by 2 foot. And we're doing sometimes, buildings that are 150 feet long, and you're running down a perfectly straight line. If that line deviates ever so slightly, once you start adding on to that flooring system, we've had it where you just can't even squeeze a tile in because it's got such a small little bend in that thing. So in terms of what skills we look for, we like guys that are kind of not necessarily subjected to one thing. The raised access floor world, the glass partitions, because we do a couple of different things. We like guys that got a bit of experience in a couple of different things. Like Keith, our project manager, is well versed in the world of glazing, which is great, obviously, with our glass. And Kobe and our other guys come from the flooring background as well. So having a mix of skills is really good for our kind of line of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, you're really not, you're really not wanting to have probably 0% deficiencies when it comes to raised floors and glazing. You don't want to go. It's not like you're just going back in to patch up a little bit of drywall or a ceiling tile or something. It's gonna be a little more complicated if there's any errors at all.
That's right. Like we see 9 times out of 10 the deficiencies with a raised access floor. If you're dealing with an underfloor air project, the biggest deficiency is going to be air leakage. That's the biggest hurdle that we have to get over, because you are essentially the top seal of that duct, right? So because it's a plenum space, the raised access floor is acting as that seal. You want to make sure that when you're pumping air from the mechanical closet throughout the space, you need to make sure that that air can get uninterrupted all the way to the perimeter, because you need to provide air to the perimeter to cool down. Like any register, any house, your air vents are always by the window because that's your heat load, right? So we have to do the same thing in an office building. We have to make sure that we can keep that pressure all the way to the outside zone. So if we have leakage other than our diffusers or our vents, it's a huge problem because we don't get enough air to the perimeter. The building doesn't work as efficiently. And I'm not going to say it's a complete disaster, but it's very tricky once you've installed the floor to find out where things are leaking. And, you got a little hole in the drywall over here, or the raised floor is not sealed on the edge over here. So there's definitely some tricks of the trade there. And especially when you're doing your glass walls, if there's punctures in the raised access floor, we're going to make sure that we're sealing those up as we go. So, we're fortunate our manufacturer that we work with, a raised access floor, has a floor that's specifically designed for underfloor air. So it's got a continuous gasket around. We can seat the panels, and we're very confident that our system can withstand that. So we're trying to mitigate, those problems that we've seen in the past. We can now navigate around them. So it's, definitely little tricks as we go, for sure.
For sure, yeah. And I just want to mention any of the guys from the interiors, drywall and wall and ceiling trade that I definitely didn't mean to diminish them in any way. I come from that background. I know so do you, Russell. And I was pretty much only good for slugging drywall and throwing in studs. All the skilled guys are putting the grid in and doing all the tough stuff. So those guys are definitely really very skilled and talented in the big
highly skilled
as well.
Highly skilled. I mean, it takes a team to build a building, right? There's not just one trade. I mean, it takes team effort to it, which is nice. Like when I was coming up through the trades, even my early years to raised access floor, it wasn't as courteous and nice as it is these days. Like these days, everybody's really seems to work together, and there's a big buy-in from all the trades. Whereas we're not, damaging other people's work, say, and you're more conscious of other trades and their work, because at the end of the day, we're all there for the same reason, right? We're all there to be successful.
Yes.
We want the client and the end user to spend more money, or tell their counterparts, hey, like, look at our building and how fantastic it is. We want the other guy to say, we can build a better one. Look what we can do. And, we get that buy-in from everybody. So yeah, it's, definitely wouldn't discount any other trade out there. Like I said, there's some, we've worked on some amazing projects with some absolutely fantastic tradespeople, and I'm very pleased to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think it makes me think of, when you're on the architectural side, which is very similar from wall and ceiling and raised floor and your modular partitions and stuff. You're definitely integrated with all the other HVAC and electrical and plumbing trades and finished carpentry and millwork and everything. And then just to have a good foreman that communicates so well, to have everybody kind of working together with your critical path, and everyone's staying ahead of each other and all that kind of stuff takes a lot of work and a lot of leadership. And I think whether it's construction or any other industry, just as when people can come together and work together toward a schedule and a budget and make it happen, it's at the end of the day, when the job's done, it's a feeling you can't really describe. I think without that feeling, it's hard to keep going. And obviously, what I'm talking about. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing. But there's so many great people out there in the trades, and
I've met some of the best people, out in that world. And like you said, like building those buildings. I've got two young girls And whenever we're driving around, they're always pointing at buildings like, "Daddy, did you build that building?" I said, "No, but I know somebody that did." Or maybe we're going to be working on that someday. But yeah, it's something you can look at after and be very proud of. Unfortunately, a lot of times with our raised floor, nobody even knows it's there, which is also a good thing. But we do a lot of walls as well, which are.
If you did a good job, nobody will ever know you were there.
That's the idea, right? Yeah, exactly. It's hard though. Sometimes, people want to go see the floor and you can't get into a lot of these buildings, right? Because a lot of the stuff we do is obviously office buildings or schools or data centers and things like that. But we're fortunate we're going to be doing a big casino here, which will be open, virtually 24/7.
Is that a new casino or renovating a?
No, a brand spanking new casino here in Calgary, just up by the airport. We'll be in there in the next couple of weeks, actually, and 26,000 square feet of 8-inch raised access floor. The raised access flooring system is actually going to be able to withstand a concentrated load of 2,500 pounds. They're going to be able to drive, those really big scissor lifts, the dual man scissor lifts. They're going to be able to drive that right along the access flooring system so that they can change and do all their maintenance to the 25-foot high ceiling. So it's what we call the heavy duty icon system that's going to be going in there. So it's really impressive what our manufacturer's been able to do over the years and produce some amazing panels that can withstand those super heavy loads. So
that's amazing. I'll have to go check it out. Play some blackjack next time.
That's what we said. Like, it's going to be great for us to take our clients to somewhere because it's a place you can have a bite to eat, you can have a drink, and you can lose a couple of bucks in the process. So
exactly.
Nice place to be for sure.
Calgary Stampede was quite recent. Did you get a chance to take the girls down to see Kevin Costner out there with his Yellowstone swag on? I love that TV show.
Yeah. No, we didn't. The Stampede, the opening ceremony there with the parade with Kevin Costner. I heard on the radio it was over 300,000 people attended that. So, the city of Calgary has grown exponentially over the years. And it's tough to get around sometimes without the Stampede. So throw the Stampede into the mix. It's very busy, which I'm super happy about because I love to see businesses downtown thriving. It's been obviously as anywhere, it's been tough the last few years. So to hear that there's 300,000 people watching the parade means that there's 300,000 people spending money downtown, which is amazing for all the businesses. But no, didn't get to see Kevin Costner, unfortunately. But myself and a couple of the guys here, we all took our kids down the other day to the Stampede. We did pick the hottest day of the year. It was 32 degrees outside, and they were measuring mid 40s in the grounds. So to say my 3-year-old didn't last too long, but we did get to see some Paw Patrol characters, so she was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, well, it's got to be 30 degrees here in Halifax today. It's quite muggy, but it's been beautiful weather here, and I know you're saying it's the same out there. And Russell, this has been a real treat for us at the Atlantic Construction Podcast team, especially when we've had a few guests from Central Canada. But like I said, this is our furthest reach west, so we hope to have some more guests on the show and kind of share perspectives from one end of the country to the other. And definitely want to wish you luck with the project in New Brunswick coming up in first or second quarter of next year. And I'm sure we'll stay in touch, and maybe we'll get to see you when you're in this neck of the woods.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a live podcast next time, and we'll see if there's some updates for you guys on the next one when we come through. So, but no, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fantastic. It's my first ever podcast. Really excited to do this. So yeah, thanks again for having me on. It was great. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Russell. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.
This episode is brought to you by Cook Insurance, your trusted insurance broker in Atlantic Canada for 50 years. Insurance is complex, and the Cook team focuses on delivering comprehensive solutions for your construction needs, including builder's risk, wrap-up liability, performance bonds, and project-specific construction. A Navicord partner since 2020, Cook is one of the largest construction brokers in Canada and offers national strength with a local touch. Whatever your insurance needs are, Cook has you covered. We would like to take this time to thank a longtime sponsor of our media platform, FCA Surety. The brokers at FCA Surety are experts in all surety bonding categories and provide unparalleled service during the bonding process. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Atlantic Construction Podcast. Be sure to follow us on any podcast platform you use. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Atlantic Construction Podcast. Be sure to send us a comment or a review. We'd love to engage with you.